Hello, I'm Nerd and welcome to this introduction to using NPM, create React app and some React fundamentals, wherein we'll go over using NPM, using create React app, which is a common starter pack really for creating React app single page applications, and we'll go over some React fundamentals. So, what concepts we're going to cover? We're going to cover NPM, which stands for Node Package Manager. We're going to cover setting up create React app. We're going to go over how to install a third-party library. In this example, we're going to create a pie chart. We'll create some components, simple demo components like hello world and that sort of thing, and we'll create a component which utilizes the third-party library to draw a pie chart, and we will cover props, components and state hooks in React on a basic level, not an in-depth level, but give you an introduction to that. So we'll use the create React app start kit to set up a simple pre-configured React project. So one of the strengths of using create React app is you don't have to do a load of webpack configuration, which can be quite difficult. And we'll explore using NPM to install a third-party package to create a pie chart with our React project. Finally, we'll create a simple component to explore using a third-party package installed via NPM and render it, as well as touching on components, props and state hooks in React. So, what is NPM? NPM stands for Node Package Manager, as I mentioned before. It's a package manager for the Node environment, which allows us to install packages for use within our JavaScript projects. So we use it via a command line interface tool in our terminal. So basically we can add commands to initialize, install packages, all that sort of thing. So that in a nutshell is what it is. Of course you need Node installed for it to work. Commonly used, let's have a look at some commonly used NPM commands. So npm init will initialize a project with a project JSON file. We'll go through that in a minute. npm install is the command we use to install a module package. So we'd put npm install and then the package name. If we want to install a new package, for example, which we'll go over in a bit. npm install, we can also add flags like save, install the global module package as a dependency. And there's also save dev, which you can use to install a module package as a dev dependency. So if we want it to just be in our development build, not the production build. There are more as well. You can also install things globally, but that's not really important for this tutorial. So let's set up npm. So I've pre-created a folder for this project, and I'm going to run the following command npm init, and then we'll try and install npm install chart.js with the save flag, which will install it as a dependency. So obviously prerequisites for this are Node. You can check if you've got it installed, if you've already installed it with in your command line interface, typing Node and then the v flag, which shows the version. If you get something returning from that, basically means that it's worked. I've already got a folder here, so this is this folder I created for this demonstrative project. Test npm init. I'm going to go, just click there and go PowerShell, which is a nice way of just quickly being able to access your shell. Okay, so let's go npm, just type npm init. Ding. So I'm going to call it test npm init. This is the name of the project package. Sorry, that's my bad. Test one. Let's call it test one. So remember, it's version 1. You can change the versioning system if you want, but I'll just leave the default. Test project. Entry point, we'll just do index.js, that's what we want here. Test command we'll leave blank. We're not pushing to a repository, so I'll just leave that default. Keywords you can add, author, just put my name. License is just going to be MIT. And I'm going to go yes, that's fine. And let's just navigate to it. So now I've got a package JSON added there, which I can open up in Visual Studio. Let's just have a look at that. So we've got name, version number, and everything we just did. I've not added an index.js yet. We're not actually going to do anything. This is more just to demonstrate. So let's go on to the next part. I need to install, just copy this is a bit easier. So I'm just going to go to my shell again. This should now install as a dependency chart.js. Let's just try that. So what's happening there is it's basically adding the package to our package.json, and then you'll see there it's added dependencies chart.js. I haven't done anything with this code. I'm not going to do anything with this code. It's more just to demonstrate that using the npm command line interface you can add a dependency, which is the main thing that we'll be dealing with in our test React project. So there you go. It's added a dependency of chart.js. And if I was going to do an npm install, it would install that. So for example, if I go install, I'll install a node modules folder with our dependency. So if I go back here, I should, okay, there we go. So we've got a node modules folder now there, which has got chart.js in it. That's that. So that was just more to introduce you to the basic concept of npm. So let's get back to the main thing. So we're going to use setup create react app. Which is basically, like I said, is a quick way of setting up a React project. We're going to install the charts library React chart.js2, and we're going to create a simple component to show a chart with some dummy data, not live data from a server or anything, just dummy data. So I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code. I usually actually use WebStorm, but that allows you to set up create React app automatically via GUI, but it's best that you understand how this stuff is working in the command line, using the command line. So we're going to do that. So we're going to copy this command. Oops, sorry. I'm going to copy this command here. I'll talk a little bit about what I'm doing. So I'm going to navigate to DevWork. I'm going to open another PowerShell. Well, I could open the same one, but I don't need that one anymore, so it's fine. I'm going to right click to paste that. I can't write it, but I mean, so because you can also do this using Yarn as well, but we're using npm in this example. Yarn's just a different package manager, but we're using npm, so we're going to go npm init react app, which is the create react app code, and then test chart app. And I want to do it 2 because I've already done a 1. So let's just go that. npm init react app. This might take a while. Usually takes about 4 minutes. There we go. So now you can see it's fetch metadata. It's fetching everything it needs, and it will install the there we go, creating a new React app in a new directory called test chart app 2. So it usually takes a while, so it's probably take about 4 minutes. So in the meantime, let's look at what we're going to do next. Yeah, we're going to install. So I'll copy this command actually, because we're going to do the install the package, but we'll have to wait until it's actually installed. So npm. There's 2 ways of basically doing the npm install. You can do npm install the package name and then flag save, or there's also a shorthand version which is npm I react chart save and then the save flag. Means the same thing. I usually just use install just because it's, but I is probably better in a way because it's shorthand, but that's just worth knowing. So I'll copy that command, and yeah, so you can see it's just doing this. So this will take a little bit of time. So while that's loading, I'll go over the typical create React file structure. So node modules is where all the node modules that are included within the app single page application will be. So that comes already with a bunch of node modules installed because create React app, like I said, is sort of pre-configured. You don't have to do any manual configuration. Public is the index.html page as well, page template. You don't usually have to touch that at all. Source is where our actual JavaScript, CSS and code goes. That's where you'll spend 95% of your time, apart from maybe package.json or the README. Git Ignore is a file that basically tells, if you're using source control, it tells Git what files and folders to ignore when committing to a repository. So for example, you really don't want to commit your entire node modules folder to GitHub, because the whole point of having the package.json, well, one of the points of having the package.json is if you run a command called npm install, which will install it locally or wherever you're hosting it. So yeah, you don't want to manually, so that's usually got a git ignore for the node modules folder. And then package.json is like a configuration and contains all information about our dependencies. And readme.md is a readme file for the application. So it gives you, it's useful to utilize that and give some information about what the app does, basically, of creating basically like reusable UI components, basically. So it's like, so sort of the way I think of it is like, if you have an engine, then that engine has separate parts. There are two ways of creating components in React: class components and functional components. Class components are more or less considered legacy now. They're a bit more, they've got a bit more boilerplate. I actually come from a class components background, but I've moved to functional components. It's the more modern way of doing things. You will possibly still come across class components in React code bases. They tend to be more legacy, because since React 16, I think it was, functional components are the way to do things. But we'll sort of touch on that a bit more later, and yeah, I can describe what that means a bit more later on. Let's just check the progress of our, yeah, it's almost done its thing now. New warnings about severity and vulnerabilities, but I think from what I understand, there we go. So there we go. So we've got it. It's done. This gives us the little bit of output just to say these commands you can run, yada yada yada. So let's just check. Just use ls to check around. I need to go into that folder now because I can't. Oh no, there's loads in there, isn't there? I have to go to, what did I call it? I'll just open it with. I'll just open it in my IDE now. So let's go open folder. So I'm using Visual Studio Code. I'm just going to open it because there's an integrated terminal within Visual Studio Code and all code editors. Most of them, anyway, from what I understand. Let's go this one. So this is what we've. So I'll select the folder here, and that's going to open up my project within the code editor. Like I said, I use WebStorm more these days, but it's really by the by. So I'm going to go right click, open an integrated terminal, which is basically the same as running the PowerShell. It's just more convenient. And I'm going to go npm install react-chart.js2 and then save it as a dev dependency. And then we'll start the app and have a look at it. So let's do that. Press return. And that should, there you go, you can see it's installing the package now. This thing, we'll just have a look in package.json. So you'll see there's a bunch of, let's move this, a bunch of pre-configured, it's pre-configured basically in here. So you've got the name, you've got the version, dependencies, and we're just going to add that new dependency which I'm adding now. So this is, these are the dependencies, blah 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 blah. So terminal, it's just still loading that, and then we'll get on to actually writing some code. This is done. Also I'll run an npm start if this is done, so we can just see what it looks like when it's installed the Create React app base, as it were. There we go, it's almost done. Just do the post install checks. There you go, you can see it's added that as a dependency now. React chart.js2 has been added. Good. So we're in this, we want to be in this directory, test chart app, which whatever you've called it, npm start, which will boot up. There you go, see React script start. If I then, it should just boot up on here once it's done. There we are, starting the development server, which basically means a local server for testing on port 3000. So let's wait for that. Usually takes about 30 seconds loading after that, which is quite useful. That's all, like I said, one of the good things about this is just it's all pre-configured, so you don't have to configure all that yourself, which is nice. There you go, success. And this is just what you get with the Create React app. It's a spinning animation, there's some CSS that defines that, and then just a link, which is in app.js. So we've got app.js here, app CSS. This is pretty simple setup, like I said, but we're just going to focus mostly on, like I said, the basics. So we're going to create, I think, our first component. So we've installed the third-party package now. Split the UI into independent reusable pieces and think about each piece in isolation. So like in the engine analogy I said before. So we're going to create a hello world component in the spirit of tradition. So we're going to create a new component, call it hello world, and it's going to we'll quickly touch on JSX. So JSX is a sort of mix in JavaScript and HTML. It stands for JavaScript XML. So it allows us to write HTML in React. So we're going to create hello world functions. This is the code we're going to write. I'll write in a second. Function hello world, return. What it returns is a JSX fragment, h1, which is heading 1, hello world, and then we'll do an export default so we can import it into other components. So let's do that. So if I go to source, I'm going to create a new folder called components because it's tidy and everything's in its own place. You could just do it as not that, but I think it's best practice to do that really. We want to go new file, and we want to go hello world. Maybe it's uppercase hello world. Okay. Oh yeah, I forgot I'm in forgot that I'm in Visual Studio Code JS. So let's just do that. Function hello world, open brackets. That's just because it expects something to be returned, so I'll do that. Hello world, and then export default hello world. This is important so that we can save that, go to app.js. We'll delete some of this stuff because we're not using it, so we'll delete the app logo, we're not going to use it, we're going to delete this and delete this. We're just going to use the standard CSS, we're not going to mess around with CSS in the example. So what I want to do next is I want to go hello import, which imports the component, hello world, auto finds it there, and then I'll just add this here, hello world, close bracket, save that, and all going well, it should, there we go, we've just got a hello world. So that's now a component being rendered in our app. Very basic one, of course, it's just a hello world, but that's the start, isn't it? So let's obviously evolve that. So yeah, let's just go what I just did. So yeah, that's how that works. So we've already installed the third-party library. We've done that already. Let's code a new component. So we want to create a pie chart, something a bit more interesting, funky, really. So this is what we'll end up having. So it's something like this: hello world with a pie chart rendered below. So we need to create a new component called pie chart. Let's do that. So again, we do a new pie chart.js. I'll just quickly copy this just so I can just quickly do this, change it obviously. Pie chart. We're not going to be returning hello world though. There we go. Import pie from, just check it quickly. Pie from React chart.js2. That's the one. That will import our, it needs to be capital actually, sorry. That will import our pie component, and I need to get some dummy data which I've prepared earlier. I'll quickly get the link to that. I'm just copying the data from one of the examples. It's more simple that way because it's quite a big object usually. So just copy that. Const data, it's type const. Just put that up here. It's just complaining because the pie, I haven't returned the pie yet. Okay, so we want to go pie data, and I'm just going to call it data and close that. So that's using a third-party library to render a pie chart in this example, and we want to change that to pie chart, otherwise it won't work. There we go. That's just an overview of what we've just done, and let's just import that into our as a component here. So we go again, import pie chart. It just auto finds it there. Maybe just copy that. Just go pie chart, which is our custom component. Save that. It should compile hopefully. No errors. Props. So props are basically a way of passing information between components. So we'll do a simple one at first that just says has my name, declare then a variable, we'll pass it to the component, and then we'll pass the props into the functional component and reference the prop. So let's do that. So I'll wait for that to do its thing. And do that while it's in the background, it's fine. So I'm going to create a variable called const name equals Chris. Semicolon there. And then we'll go name equals name. So that's the name of the prop, that's the name of the what it's referencing. So let's go to hello world. What we do here, we add props, pass in the props, and then we go props name, which should mean that prop shows up. Here, I think I know what's up. I forgot to, I think it's just the way I installed it first without, I missed chart.js. Hopefully this will work. It relies on React chart.js 2 relies on chart.js and other dependencies. One of the joys of NPM. Often depend, or some packages depend on another package, etc. Okay, let's just hopefully that works now. So I've done this. There we go. Now we get our pie chart. Now we get our hello world with our prop. So that's our prop, which you've passed from the app down to this component, and we get our pie chart, which is a bit big, but it doesn't matter. This isn't a UI tutorial, so you could also pass this prop down to pie chart 2 and say something like, I'll have to put this in a div now or something. So one funny thing is that each one props name, and I'm going to pass props here, save that. It should say Chris chart, what have I done there? Oh, not closed it. Which runtime? Because try it again. Oh yeah, it's one thing I always forget with Visual Studio Code is you have to keep on manually saving it every time. There we go. So that's the prop being passed there. That's the prop being passed there from this component. And I'll just put Chris pie chart. So that's props and components covered. Past the props. So the state and props in React. What if we wanted to change some data on the fly though in our app? So that's where state comes in. So this is direct from the documentation. Props short for properties and state are both plain JavaScript objects. Or both hold information that influences the output of render, they're different in one important way. Props gets past the component, whereas state is managed within the component. So we're having a pretty simple one in this because it's just an app with them past that parent, which is the parent, and then the two components we made, which are the child. So we're going to implement something called a state hook, which there are two different ways of doing this in React, but we're going to focus on the functional component way of doing things via the state hook, because it's the more modern way of doing it, and it's probably the recommended way to do it. So first we import set state. We're going to do this in our top level component, the parent component, which is app.js. So we just need to import use state. We're not using it yet, so that's why it's coming up like that. Then I'm going to use this under function app. We write const username, set username, and then it sets the initial state to an empty string. We don't want it to be anything at the start, so that's that. So look at what's going on here. We've got a variable type const. We've got the state, which is username, and then the set username, which is the hook to actually change and update the state using useState. So we're going to create this, just an input form basically, that takes as a value the username state. So we'll write that at the top here. I'm just going to copy and paste it because it's laborious to type it all out. So the value is username, that's the state. And then on change, it's an event, and then we call the set username hook, which is this, which is the set state hook, and we just set it to the value. So let's just see what difference that makes. Remembering that we've not, so I can there. But I mean that doesn't. What we can do also is, so what if we wanted to set the name dynamically? We could add the username here as a prop. So the prop name prop, which is referenced there, we set it to the state username. So then, if you see that, so there's nothing there because it's just an empty string, and I'm going to go Bob the builder, which you can see changes it on the fly. I can put anything here, like probably just anything really, because I've not added any real much for the input form, which you probably want to do in a real world example, but you sort of get the idea. The name of this is the state being passed down as a prop. So there you go. That sort of demonstrates that. So that's what I've just done. So yeah, remember that the top, it goes down like this. So you've got a parent and then a child. You can also pass props down further. When you get further along in React, you usually need state management tools, but that's beyond the scope of this. So that's sort of our final code that we've just done. And yeah, the final app looks like that. We've got use the NPM, so we've covered using NPM, common commands, using create React app. We utilised the third-party package, we created some components, added props, played with set state, and then passed username as a prop to the lower level components. So that's that. That's a basic overview. If you have any questions, let me know. The source code I'll put it as a reference as well. That's the end of the presentation. If it was useful, bye.